Hello everyone, I'm Burfy1322. I'm about to get underway with a brand new racing event. I'm coming into the pits because I'm not taking part in the race start. As you can see, there we go, everybody's off in the Supercar Showdown version 2. This is going to be a very interesting race. I'll explain what's going on as we go through it so you get the full idea of what we're doing. I'll explain all what we're doing. I was the pace setter, the pace car, so I just pulled into the pit lane at the start and I will be standing at the back. So where we go now. So the race has officially started. What race is this? This is the second version of the Supercar Showdown. For those who are unaware of what the Supercar Showdown is, the first version of this, we've done various showdown events in the past. The first version of which was well, it wasn't really the first version, but it was the first time we did it in supercars and the first time we sort of did it properly, and it was on this track, obviously the old version of this track, not the new version, Ron Raceway in supercars. And back then it was different supercars than what you're seeing right now. It was the Entity, the Zentorno, the T20, the Turismo, and something else I think I can't exactly remember right now. But yeah, these are all brand new supercars, different supercars entirely. And the idea behind this event is it's a race. It's an hour-long race, so it's 28 laps and it's about 2 minutes per lap, just over. And we've got equal numbers of 5 different supercars. In this race, we've got the RE7B, we've got the ETR1, the X80 Proto, which is what I'm driving, the Tempesta, and the something else. What else is there? There's another one. What's the other one? I'm totally spaced out on it because I can't see it in front of me. Oh, the Nero. It is right in front of me, of course. The Nero or the Nero Custom, whichever one people chose to have, it didn't really matter. So those are basically the top 5 supercars in the game in terms of lap time, pretty much anyway. And we're doing a showdown with them where you can there's only 6 people in each of the 5 cars. Obviously 30 people in a race. We did have 30 people, but someone unfortunately lagged out before we got the race started. But yeah, the idea with these showdown events is just to have a bit of fun, you know, get some different vehicles in different formats, you know, try something a little bit different that you wouldn't normally see, and force people into using certain vehicles that they may not necessarily use, just so we can have some fun and interesting races. And some of these showdown events, if you check back in the live racing series, and there's also a playlist just for racing events which I'll leave a link to as well, there've been some really good races. Especially I think the one that stands out the most is the Slow Sport Showdown on Olympic Grand Prix, because that really showed various different vehicles in different ways. You know, we had vehicles that had high top speed, had vehicles that were better in corners, and it was interesting to be racing those vehicles and seeing the various different strengths and weaknesses of different vehicles. And that's what these showdown events are all about, doing something a little bit different. Go for an overtake there. I think if we get the inside for here, the ETR1's got the cornering speed though. So yeah, it's about racing in different vehicles in a bit of a different format than you would normally see. Now in this race, like I said, it's an hour-long race, but you also have to make 3 pit stops. So 3 pit stops are mandatory in this race. This isn't going to go well. We managed to hold it. Oh, just managed to get through all of that. X80 Proto speed will help me pull away a little bit at this point. But yeah, this is obviously, we're doing this with people in the crew, the racing crew that we have, Nonchalant Dominance. So there's a lot of good drivers here. I have no idea where I'm going to finish in this race. I'd be happy with top half, to be honest. Oh, there's a crash. I would be very happy with top half because there's a lot of very good drivers in here. The thing is, nobody has been able to put in any practice for this because I did a little bit of a surprise. So these showdown events normally have a little bit of a surprise, and if you watch the original Supercar Showdown video, the first surprise in that one was that we had a reverse grid after the qualifying. So everybody qualified and then realised that if they qualified on first place, they were going to be standing at the back, for example. But there's a few people taking their pit stops. But yeah, these have always have a bit of a surprise, and this was originally scheduled to be on a different track on Los Santos GP. But the plan was to always have it on this track on Ron Raceway. Obviously the link for this track, if you want to race it, will be in the description. And it's a good track for supercars to do an event like this, because although the RE7B is going to be pretty powerful on this track because of its crazy levels of traction, and this circuit is dominated by traction, it does negate that a little bit because all of the supercars have at least a decent amount of traction, certainly the top ones that we're racing here. So we should be able to have a little bit of decent racing going on, even if an RE7B does ultimately win in the end, which I'm fully expecting it to. And that's the whole thing with these supercar showdowns. It's not really necessarily about who wins or who loses or whatever. And I suppose there could be a bit of plaudits for winning your specific class of vehicle, so whoever's the best RE7B or the best Tempesta or the best X80 or whatever. But in general, it's just a bit of a way to have some fun, and a fun racing event, and have some good racing along the way. So yeah, that was the first surprise, that we were on a completely different track. So everybody who'd put in a lot of practice on the other track, which I specifically said people shouldn't practice for this event for this very reason, but people did anyway, obviously. They were a bit of a loss for this one, because they've come to a brand new track, and all that practice doesn't really mean anything. And the second surprise was that it has been a reverse grid. So the grid that you saw at the start, we basically did a rolling lap at the start, where I led people around the first part of the lap, pulled off into the pit lane, and then the race officially started. But the order of the people in that race, someone else going for his pit stop, the order of the people in that race was, and someone coming out of the pit stop here, the order in that race was, the starting grid was a reverse grid order. So the slowest qualifier was at the front, and the quickest qualifier was at the back. So again, that just mixed it up a little bit, which is kind of what we like to do in these events, like I said, just to make it a little bit different and a little bit fun, and try to keep it a bit light-hearted and not all about who's the ultimate best in this race, because that's not really what it's about. It's just about having a bit of fun and having some good racing along the way. So I'm up into 10th place right now, but I imagine some of the positions that I've gained, as you've already seen, have been from people coming into the pits and making their pit stops. Like I said, you've got to do 3 pit stops during this race. Now, it can be at any time during the race, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you make your pit stops. You're not allowed to do it off the rolling start, obviously, and you're not allowed to do it on the last lap. But at any other point, you are allowed to make your pit stop, and you've got to make 3. So those are just the rules. Basically, you've got to come into the pits, drive through the pit lane, and that's it. You've done your mandatory pit stop, and that's just a rule that we've got in this showdown event in particular. And it's something that you get sometimes in events. You have variations and different things. You would never be able to do that in a random race. Obviously, people wouldn't be trusted to be able to do 3 pit stops throughout the course of the race, but it's just something that we are doing in this one, and it's the rule that we've set up. I couldn't get that done there. I'm getting held up a little bit now. So basically the introduction of pit stops, I think, is one of the better things that we do when it comes to events like this, because it involves a little bit of tactics. I'm stuck behind a few people now who I'm quicker than. It would be a good idea for me to come into the pits now, but if anybody in front of me does as well, then I don't really want to do that. Okay, so they've all gone into the pits. That didn't go as well as I planned. Oh, nightmare. So the idea there was that I wanted to do the opposite of what people in front of me were doing. Obviously, ideally I wanted to come into the pits there and everybody else just to continue, but because the 2 in front of me decided to go into the pits as well, I figured it would be better for me to just continue. But it didn't quite work out like that, because I made a late change of movement, and yeah, that was a bit iffy. So that hasn't worked out for me as much as I would have liked, unfortunately. So there's some people around us that have done pit stops. There's some people that still have 3 pit stops to do. Some people might be right at the back of the grid and have done all their 3 pit stops early. you know, you just don't know where anybody is, and it's not gonna be, you're not gonna know who's going to win the race until we get to the very last lap and everybody will have done all their pit stops, because we just don't know who's got to lose time and who hasn't. I've still got my 3 pit stops to do. I'm pretty sure Cirrus in front of me in the X80 has done at least one of his pit stops. I think I saw him in the pit lane at one point. Wow, that's somebody gone way off there. So I'm pretty sure he has. He's done at least one of his pit stops. So he's 1 pit stop ahead of me. I'm directly behind him in the race, but he has still done 1 pit stop more than I have, which means that I'm basically a full pit stop behind him in terms of race time. So that means by the time we get to the end of the race, it's unlikely that I'm going to be anywhere near him, unless I actually do the race a lot quicker than him, which probably isn't going to happen. And it just adds a little bit of tactical idea to a race situation like this, where you can try to, if you've got slower people in front of you, you can try to come into the pit lane and put in a few quick laps and overtake them during the pit lane process before they come into do their pit stop. And if you're sort of, so I'm going to come into the pits now. I think it's a good time for my first one, just to get out of the way of what's happening. Okay, so done the pit stop. Just got someone to the right of me. Okay, so that was Drew, but directly behind me in the Tempesta. Yeah, so that worked out well for me. I was stuck behind him when he came. That was the last lap where I was going to come into the pit lane and I didn't, because there was 2 people in front of me who came in at the same time. Drubert was one of those people. He was in the Tempesta first up, who came into the pit lane first and made me decide to not come into the pit lane. So that's where the tactics is involved. You know, me choosing to do the opposite strategy to what he did has allowed me to overhaul him, because I've done a better lap than he did on the outlap, on his outlap and my in lap, and it's allowed me to overtake him. Despite I didn't overtake him on track, I just overtook him by doing a better lap in the pit lane process and the pit stops. So, you know, anybody who watches Formula One relatively regularly will know exactly what I'm talking about here. You know, it's a standard thing in Formula One when it comes to pit stops and trying to get undercuts. And if you're out in front, for example, it's generally a good idea to not make a pit stop until later on in the race, because, well, you know, there's 2 aspects to that. You don't want to make a pit stop too early, to the point where if you've got a lot of clear space in front of you, you don't want to drop back into a lot of traffic and then get slowed down. You just want to continue focusing on your lap times. But then if there's somebody quicker behind you, you want to make a pit stop to potentially try and defend from them. You know, if they've made all their pit stops and they're coming up on you really quickly, you know, you want to try and be able to affect their lap times by defending from them, instead of just giving the lead away by them catching up to you, and by the time you make your pit stop, they pass you. So sorry to anybody who's not quite up to date with what this all means and what this is all about when it comes to pit stops and serious racing events like this. Anybody who's new to my channel might be getting a little bit confused, but ultimately all you need to worry about is that it's an hour-long race. You've got to make 3 pit stops. You've got to drive through the pit lane 3 times, and everybody has to do it at some point during the race. And we're not really going to know who's finished where until we get to the very last lap. So, I'm in 10th place right now. That doesn't really mean an awful lot. I've made 1 pit stop out of 3. I don't know how many pit stops other people around me have made. You know, I don't know. I don't really know anything at this point. 10th place doesn't really mean all that much. I'm driving the X80 in this one, just because I quite like the X80. I don't mind it. There's quite a few people who don't necessarily like it that much. I don't mind it. It's quite a challenge to drive, I think, and it's quite fun to drive. Obviously on this track the RE7B is going to be the quickest. The ETR1, to go through the cars that we have in this race again, we've got 6 ETR1s, 6 X80s, 5 RE7Bs, 6 Tempestas and 6 Neros or Nero Customs. So the one person who disconnected was in an RE7B. But yeah, the RE7B is going to be pretty OP on this track, but that brings into it, you know, you've got different drivers in different cars, so it's going to be a mix as you go through, and I'm sure that we're going to have a nice mix of people in a variety of different cars at the top of the field and all the way through the field by the time we get to the end of the race. But yeah, it's fun to get back into this. I'm not sure when I'm going to upload this video. It will be after the snow event. The snow event will probably be the video that you've seen just before this one in terms of the live racing series. And this is the sort of thing that I was talking about during that video. This is the sort of thing that I want to do a bit more. I want to get more involved in this. Do more events like this, pre-arranged events with quality drivers, not just stream races all the time, and we can, you know, have events where we have pit stops, and you've got to make pit stops, and there's a bit of tactics involved, and different cars that you're locked into using. You know, not everybody just using the RE7B or whatever. It's good to do things like this and do serious, proper racing events where, yeah, we are having a bit of fun, but we are racing properly and cleanly as well. Obviously, that's the most important thing that we do when it comes to racing. Is all about clean racing and being able to overtake someone through skill and not just knocking someone off the track, things like that. So, I'm in a battle for 9th place with Evil. He's in a Nero Custom, I'm in an X80. The Nero Custom is going to have various advantages over the X80. The X80 is going to have various advantages over the Nero over the course of a lap. And we'll just see how it goes. Like I said in the previous video, there will be moments in these event videos where I'm a little bit quiet. I haven't really been paying attention to what's been going on in the race. Like the first 3 or 4 laps have just completely passed me by, to be honest. Just because I was talking so much and trying to focus on talking to you guys and making a decent video in terms of what you guys are going to be watching. You know, this is the live racing series, so everything that you're hearing me say, I am speaking this as it's happening. It's not just like a commentary video where I record it afterwards. I'm recording this live, so I am racing whilst I'm talking. It is a challenge. I've gotten a lot better at it over the years of doing it, but it's still difficult. But yeah, there are going to be moments where I'm trying to concentrate and be a little bit more quiet than what I normally am. So pretty static in terms of I haven't been able to make a move for an overtake just yet. This is the new version of Ron Raceway. Obviously it looks a hell of a lot better than the old version did. Actually, Evil, who's directly in front of me right now in the race, he created this and all my updated tracks, and it looks so much better. It looks really nice now. It's got a bit of character to it. You can see other vehicles in different parts of the circuit. You might be noticing in different locations, maybe as we come around the corner there just in front of us. And all sorts of different things like that. Okay, let's see if we can mount a challenge on Evil for a position. If not, it might be a good idea to come into the pits and get some clear air. But then we have to take into account that's not very good driving. Have to take into account what's behind us. So we've got a bit of a gap behind us. Nema is 1.5 seconds behind, Dudo is 3.7 seconds behind, and then there's a gap, there's about 10 seconds. I'm not entirely sure how much time you lose in the pits. I would imagine it's probably around 10 seconds, so do I really want to, you know, this is what you're going to be thinking about in races like this. Do I really want to be making a pit stop now and potentially come back into a pack of other people who are all racing together with each other and get slowed down even more? Maybe it's better to just stick with what I'm doing. Nema's caught me up in his Nero. I'm in a Nero custom sandwich at the moment, and my X80 is not liking it. If you drive the X80 is quite difficult to drive. If you drive it well, it can do you nicely, it can get you decent times, but it can also bite you quite a lot, which is what it's done on this lap. This lap has not been a good lap for me in the X80. Caught up a little bit on the latter part of the lap. Alright, let's try to trying to do a little bit better than what we have been doing. Oh, that's an explosion. Didn't expect to hear one of those. So we've got something else ahead of us as well. It's difficult to make out exactly what the cars are. It's Nero. It's an X80 with 3 Neros around me. That's what's happening right now. So, Nero Custom, no, a regular Nero, no, it's a Nero Custom. Nero Custom with Shady Fruit, a Nero Custom of Evil, and then a Nero Custom behind me with Nema. Overtake happening here. Can I take a little bit of an advantage if anybody's getting compromised a little bit? Oh, that was not good. Oh, that was not good. Got the dirt. It's alright, he's not coming up on me just yet. Defend into that corner. Shouldn't be possible to get past around this section. Ah, the stupid sign. I tried to avoid it. Ah, that was a really nice move as well. Damn it. Alright. I'm gonna make my second pit. Oh no, that was the worst time. Ah. God damn it. Tried to get an overtake in the pit lane as well. Oh, nightmare. Okay, so that's not gone well. At least I've got 2 of my 3 pit stops done. I didn't lose too much time. The people who were 10 seconds behind me are about 4 and 6 seconds behind me now, so that's exactly what I didn't want though. That's how it can go against you as well, you know. I wanted to come into the pits there. Every single time that I've come into the pits, I've had somebody else come into the pits as well. And I've always, when I've come into the pits, I've wanted to get a bit of free air in front of me so I can just drive my own race for a few laps. And every single time I've come in, I've had that made not possible. But if I can get an overtake on Shady Fruit, there is a bit of space ahead of me. Dodo is ahead of him in his ETR1. Can we do a cut back? Managed it there. Okay. Alright, so we've got Dodo ahead in an ETR1. The ETR1 should be pretty decent in some parts of the lap because of the downforce that it has and the reliance on high cornering speeds and traction on a lot of this track on Ron Raceway. But on these parts of the lap, sort of the end of the lap, it's probably not going to do as well because it's got the worst top speed of any of the vehicles in this race. Oh, that's not gone well. So maybe I can catch up to the ETR1. I'm not sure, but there is a bit of a gap ahead of me right now. So there's no point in coming into the pits now. Got one more pit stop to make. When we talk about mandatory pit stops, you don't have to necessarily repair your car. There's actually an extra slowdown zone in the repair section. For anybody who's seen the video about my tracks, I explained why we've got that. But this is the first time it's really been in use, and this is the first of the new generation of tracks that we've seen of my tracks used in this showdown event like this, a showdown format. But yeah, you don't have to use this even slower lane and repair your car, but you can if you want to. Obviously, you'll just take a bit more of a penalty in terms of time lost. So I think I'll shut up for a little bit, try to learn how to drive the X80 a bit better around here, maybe I can catch up to the ETR1. But I've got a bit of space in front of me now, so really what I want to do is just get my head down and try to put in some reasonably decent lap times and see where I can finish up in the end. Like I said, we're never going to know what position I'm going to be in until the very end when everybody's done their pit stops. I have one more to do. Don't know about anybody else. Okay, so I hadn't actually, you might have just seen that, an RE7B came out of the pit lane. I made up a position. We hadn't encountered that RE7B so far. He started near the front of the pack, I think, from what I can remember. So, you know, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to the pit stops. There's going to be some people who started near the front of the pack who make their pit stops later on in the race, who, because we did a reverse grid, the people who were at the front of the pack aren't necessarily going to be the quickest. So we've got this interesting feature with it where we could be catching the people in first, second, third, fourth, fifth places, for example, and they're just keeping first, second, third, fourth, fifth places because they haven't come into the pits, and then they'll come into the pits and be overtaken, and the result at the very end will be completely different. So, you know, it's just an interesting thing to keep in mind, and I'm just trying to focus on my own race at the minute whilst I'm not getting caught up with anything, and decide when to make that final pit stop at some point for during the rest of this race. Looks like a decent group of them ahead of me though. There's 9th. There's 8th. That was actually Evil, who we were racing against earlier before I came into the pits. I don't know what happened to him there. Don't know how many pit stops he's made, but if he's made the same as me, he might have made one less than I have. So that puts me in a good position. Don't know how many people in front of me still have more pit stops to make. Don't know how many people behind me may have made all their pit stops and will overtake me when I come to make my final pit stop. You know, you just don't know. And I like that about these events as well. Just adds a bit of mystery to who's going to win, in addition to all the tactics that you have regarding when to make your pit stop and things like that. Still got Dodo ahead of me in the ETR1. I think I've been catching a little bit, but we're running approximately the same pace. The ETR1 is probably, I think it's probably a little bit slower than the X80 around the lap, by maybe a small amount, but it's a hell of a lot more consistent. I'm certainly not being very consistent with the X80. Every lap is varying wildly, I'm pretty sure. You know, it's, you know, the back end's coming out a little bit every now and then. I'm bogging down in some corners, things like that, because the X80 is a difficult one to handle, and I'm not necessarily that experienced with it. So it's a little bit different every time, and whereas the ETR1 you can kind of push every lap because it's so consistent and so stuck to the ground, more so than any of the other vehicles we've got, I think, in this race. And that's what's so good about these showdown events. Just those different styles of vehicles all coming together and seeing what works best in various different parts of the track and different parts of the race. Alright, so that was a bit weird. I managed to overtake Doodle, as you saw. That was the top speed of the X80. It's probably about on par with the Nero and the Nero Custom for the two cars in this race that have the highest top speed. The RE7B and the ETR1 are the two cars with the lowest top speed, although the Tempest is not that great either. But they obviously are better at the cornering than the Nero and the X80, but it's all very close margins, of course. But it was the top speed that allowed me to get past Doodle, because I got a nice run, and obviously just the top speed difference of the cars. And then I decided that I would, once I'd got past him, because I'm generally not that good when people are following me in terms of driving. I'm just not very good at driving. Driving in front of people and getting good lap times and things like that. So I decided to come into the pits, and I was expecting Doodle to fly right past me again. Obviously I come into the pits, he doesn't. I was expecting him to fly past, and I would be back behind him again, but at least I would have got my final pit stop done. But he didn't, and he seemed to disappear. I don't know what happened to him there. So yeah, I'm still in 7th, which was the position that I got when I overtook Doodle. I've done all of my pit stops at this point, which means that, and it's pretty good for me, that if I get overtaken by somebody, getting overtaken by somebody is the only way that I can finish lower than 7th. It's possible that I might finish higher than 7th if people ahead of me still have to make their pit stops, but it's probably not likely because there aren't that many people ahead of me that are very close. So even whoever's directly ahead of me, even if he makes another pit stop, he'll probably still come out ahead of me anyway. So kind of interesting to... Oh my god, I don't believe it. And there's an RE7B just past me. Damn it! It was all going so well, and then I choked it. That's actually the first mistake I've had in one of these events for quite a while. I've been alright in actual events. I normally make quite a few mistakes when it comes to stream races, but in the event it's been alright, but obviously not this time. So okay, so I'm back down to 8th. Everything that I said still applies. I don't know whether Eimer in front of me in the RE7B has made all 3 of his pit stops. He might have only made 2, and he's still going to make his 3rd pit stop, and I'll be able to overtake him. Someone is directly behind me as well. I'm not sure who that is. I would imagine it's Doodle, because he can't have been that far. I don't know what happened to him, but I think it is. I think it's Doodle who's behind me again, so pretty much that battle is resumed. All I know is I've done all my pit stops now, so I don't need to do it again. The lead is changing at the head of the field. Can't see us making up any more positions beyond 7th. I can't see us making up 7th, to be honest, either, because an RE7B is going to be a bit too much to handle around here. So I think it might be myself and Doodle battling for 8th position until the end of the race. It doesn't look like there's many people around us beyond that. So yeah, I remember that. Oh god. Losing concentration a little bit now. This is at the back end. If you're wondering when I'm recording this, I'm actually recording it on the 20th of January. I don't believe it. This has gone horribly. I'm recording it on the 20th of January, and it's at the back end of me having a severe case of illness. So maybe that's the cause of these last few laps. I've just lost concentration a little bit, but that's been That's been pretty horrendous. I've got someone else behind me now as well. I think it was after I made that final pit stop. I lulled myself into a false sense of security. I thought I'm in 7th. All my 3 pit stops are made. There's not really anybody around. That's it. I'm just going to drive it home to the end. And I've just lost concentration and capitulated a little bit. So never mind. We'll try to pick it back up again. These are the things that happen in races. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. This is an interesting battle right now. I'm enjoying this actually. We've got an ETR one that's got the better cornering speeds, as you can see there, just being able to pull away around the corners. Then the X80 that has the top speed. This is being a bit fun, but in terms of what's happening elsewhere in the race, we've got Jamie Jones in first place. He is in an RE7B and he qualified in first place a good few seconds quicker than anybody else. So, you know, that is underlying the RE7B's dominance around here. He's gone from pretty much last. I started in last place, obviously, because I came into the pits at the start as I was, you know, doing the rolling lap. But he started pretty much in, you know, 29th place. And he's gone to first position. So yeah, the dominance of the RE7B in the hands of a good driver is shown there. In second place we've got Murphos and Cirrus. Murphos is only, looks like 1 second ahead of Cirrus, so that could be an interesting fight to the end. Murphos is in a Nero Custom, Cirrus is in an X80, so we've got 3 different vehicles in the top 3, which is pretty good. They all started near the back as well, so they were some of our top qualifiers. Next up after them we've got Nema, who also started near the back. I can't remember what vehicle he's in. And Brady and Mr. Boxman, they started near the front. So they qualified near the back and have managed to start near the front because of the reverse grid and kept a decent amount of pace. Probably just stayed out of any trouble. Did their pit stops late on, which is why they were sort of in the lead earlier on in the race, and managed to inherit some decent positions from that. So yeah, I'm certainly not going to be the quickest X80 in that. That is going to be Cirrus, and I'm not surprised by that. I've been woefully inconsistent, I think, in this race. My consistency has been nowhere. I mean, it's not helped by the fact that it's an X80, which is inconsistent in general, but I've not had a good handle on it. So some laps have been quite good, some laps have been pretty shocking, and obviously I've made a few mistakes in a certain moment during the race where I lost concentration. So yeah, it's been an up and down race. I had a good start, managed to make up some positions without any issues, and I think I did start in last position, so there's only so much you can do. But then again, the people who are in the top 5, top 6 positions all started, no, the top 4 positions all started closer to the back as well. But yeah, my consistency certainly hasn't been there, and I'm not surprised. It's been a while since I've done a serious racing event like this. It's just not something that I've done for a long time. I've just been doing stream races and things like that. So if I'm ever, as we go through and do more events like this, that will hopefully come back a little bit. But yeah, maybe we can get another position, but I'm not catching up as much as I would like to do though. We've only got 2 laps to go, and to be honest, at this point I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get close enough. We had our chance, I think, when we were overtaking before. Dudo did a good job of defending. I think we might have to settle for 9th. We've got 2 people in front of us now. I don't know whether those are back markers. I think one of them's just come into the pits. We got 3 people in front, I'm just seeing going around there. Some of them must be back markers, unless the people in front of us really did save all their pit stops until the last few laps and they've just done them all in the last 3 laps. Which could be interesting. Obviously I got 2 of my pit stops done quite early, I would say. Got them out the way with quite early. The 3rd one was just after the halfway mark. Okay, so one of those people was a back marker. He's got on out of the way. I'll try and have a look. Okay, so there's another back marker as well ahead of us. It was actually Imarogko who came into the pits in the RE7B, so if I hadn't made the mistake, he did have extra pit stops to make, and I probably would have been able to keep that 7th place. Because he's right back with us now after having made his pit stops, but the RE7B is just driving away. One more lap to go after this. Back marker getting out of the way. I'm not going to be able to get close enough to go for 8th place. It's been a nice little battle we've had with Doodle in the ETR one, and it's showcased, the different strengths and weaknesses of different cars. Obviously the X80 with its higher speed in general, the ETR one with its higher cornering ability. So it's been fun to have that. Oh, Imarogko had to make another pit stop. Oh wow, okay. If only he'd come out a little bit behind us and we could have been able to try and go to hold him back. Yeah, if I hadn't made those mistakes, I would have been able to finish in 7th. Still might have as mistakes, but I doubt it. So that's what I'm saying about pit stops. You just never know until the very end when everybody's made their pit stops. Who's got it to go and who's got what left. Ugh. Yeah, I just haven't been very consistent with the X80 in this race. Haven't done very well. We are a lot closer though. Maybe we can get something on the last lap. Jamie Jones finishes in 1st place in the RE7B. I think that hindered me more than it helped me. We got a nice little turn of speed there though, around the outside. Had to leave him space. We left each other space, that was good racing there. He's going defensive early. He's going to have the advantage around the cornering sections here. going to be able to do it. He had the advantage. That was my chance on the back straight. Just couldn't hold it. Maybe until we get to the line. No. 9th place it is. Good racing there though. Good racing. So yeah, Jamie Jones with the win in the RE7B, Murphos in 2nd, Cirrus in 3rd. It's good to see 3 different vehicles in the top 3 at least. But yeah, it was some good racing, and hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we'll try and do some more of this as well if you guys want it. Let me know all your thoughts down below about what you thought about this. But thanks for watching, guys. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.